Hello and welcome to Lids the Experience. We are so glad you could join us for the live launch of Leah Chilingwe's second book, Lids. Tonight we have conversations, items, and so much more. So lean in as we discuss all things lids.
Guys, how good is this book? Fresh out. Find it on Amazon. Stay on YouTube, but just open a new tab, go to Amazon, you can find it on here, that's absolutely fine. Guys, let me introduce some of the friends we've got. We've got Ronia. Ronia's fantastic. We have Pete, and of course we have our fantastic author. We have Leah Chilingwe here with us. Lids, cracking your glass ceiling, book number 2.
Book number 2.
Book number 2, how do you feel?
I feel like I've got many babies.
Yes.
More to come.
Wow. I think I'm ready for more already. I think this one took me to the limit, but I can break my ceiling and go further. I think that's
Break your ceiling out.
Let's jump in. I think, can you just talk about lids? Why lids? Why have we called it lids?
I think for me, the genesis of the book, it was born from a position or an experience of pain. And I think in looking at stuff, when we go through stuff, a lot of the time it's easy to look externally for reasons as to why that has happened. But for me, I think the experience I've learned and the age that I'm at, I've learned that sometimes there's something internally that's going on. So in looking at myself and looking inside, I began to discover that there were things that had stopped me from being who I should have been. You know, what are those things that stop me? And sometimes it could even be yourself.
Yeah.
So I also understand that even as we start talking, I think it's really important for me to say that I come from a position of strength.
Yeah.
I'm not coming from a position of condemnation.
Yeah.
I'm coming here to teach rather and to share, and hoping that what I share begins to help other people and teach other people to free themselves. I'm also very aware that it will land on people differently.
Yeah.
It will meet people at different places, you know, the allies they've gone through, the experiences they've had. But this for me was a personal experience and the identification of the things that had stopped me from where I felt I wanted to be.
I think that's big. I think the development of this book, like your first book, you told your story. And I think this book takes it to the next level where you teach. And you've seen yourself grow. And the how I see in it is that you want others to grow.
Yes.
So I think, is there any specific growth things you've had to go through whilst trying to, just in the process of writing the book? Is there any real growth moments in that?
The big thing that I think I could take away from me is that I chose fear. I chose faith over fear. And sometimes you could be over a place where you're afraid to speak your truth, or you're afraid to speak what you see as truth because you're fearful of the environment that you're in. And I don't think I'm saying that I'll ever go to a place where I'm never ever going to be fearful.
Yeah.
But I think what I know is I'm going to be able to identify the lid of fear that stops me from becoming who I think I was going to be. So that was, I think that for me, I chose faith over fear.
Yeah.
I chose truth over lies.
I think that lid of fear is something that we see. I think society, let's look at this year, we're in August.
Yeah.
We've been inside for 5 months.
Yeah.
You know, I think people have gone through that fear. Have gone through that fear. And I think this is just on a little tangent, maybe like a quick encouragement around that lid of fear that you've smashed through with this.
Yeah.
People can smash through it in a very small way in their season right now.
And I think I don't know whether it's Joyce Meyer says this, fear is false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
That for me really became true, in that what you fear on the other side is not what you think it will be. It might be crazy, but the fact is it doesn't take you out. So the encouragement for me is that even though you have that fear, that lid of fear, you are always fearful, what if?
Yeah.
What if they stop talking to me?
Yes, yeah.
What if I lose this?
Yeah.
What
Yes,
if? But the
yeah.
what if doesn't kill you.
Absolutely.
You know, it just makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, like fear is it's the level of thought.
Yeah.
And I think that's where their first stage is. That's their first glass ceiling to break, is those level of thoughts. How much power do thoughts have in that process? I mean, even within this, like you said, you were fearful, maybe even writing, it will land with people differently. There's so many levels of thoughts to your thinking even as you're writing this. And then you've got to think how about people receive it as well.
Yeah, and I think it's divorcing yourself. It's respecting the fact that however people receive it, I'm going to respect where you are, but that shouldn't immobilize and stop you from speaking your truth.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, and there's a lot of people who are bound by fear. There's a lot of people who stay in situations. I mean, you talk about domestic violence. You know, you look at the statistics now in the current climate. They'll be like people are in lockdown. That's all increased. Why do people stay? And you always ask yourself that. Well, It's fear, isn't it? It's fear of being alone, fear of what could be, fear of losing wherever they're at. And I think for me, there are many lids that I identified in my life, but that was the biggest one because of what had happened to me. I just began to question myself why I allowed things to happen for so long.
Yes, absolutely. I think, and that's it's one of the biggest strongholds that we have. I think, as a modern society, fear is the one thing that holds us back, and there's so much power in it. And I know, like, there's a lot of references you make within it to kind of like your faith. So, how did you fight your fear with your faith in the process of writing this?
And I think that for me, there are people out here who are watching who don't have a faith. But for me, I think my anchor was my faith. I do not know how I could have done this, because you need to have a higher voice with a more authority speaking into your situation and say, Leah, it's not as bad as you think it's looking. You know, Leah is not going to kill you if I'm not giving it authority. Leah, the ultimate end is that you win. Leah, this is a fix-up. So you need a higher voice that's speaking to you. And for me, that's the only way that I could overcome it. And you know, I think I talk about you will gravitate to your most dominant thoughts in the first chapter. And if that's what you meditate on, what would they think if I say this? What would they think? And I just think you only get one crack at this, you know? You only live one life. So if I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out in a bang. You will know Leah Chilengo has been here.
I think you do. And in terms of that, like you say about your faith, but this book's not written just for people that would maybe find themselves in church. Obviously, you speak from your experience, but can this be applied
It's an experience of many people, I think. You know, we were talking about this just before we were filming. It can apply to workplace, it can apply to your relationships, you know, friendships. I was talking about the lids of friendships. Like, how many of us, guys, I don't know whether you guys feel this, but us girls, we've got friends who they'll call you and they'll count how many times they've called you.
Absolutely.
Why are you fearful? Of answering your phone. You have to call enough, and it's always strategic, and then you have to lie and tell a story as to why you didn't call them. Like, I've reached a level in my life where I've got best friends all over the world, and I might not talk to them for ages, but when I pick up the phone, it's almost like
and those are the friends that we want.
And those are the friends that you want, and that's a lid. So it's you don't have to have faith to recognize that you've got lids in your life.
And also sometimes what friends say to you is a lid. You know, how they talk to you, how they talk about you, what they say to you, the words that they say to you is also a lid. You know, so we also have to be careful about that as well.
And again, it's you mentioned lying, and it's that thing you say in the book. Lying always comes from fear of conflict of some kind, or fear of conflict
at some level.
And ultimately, it will always just lead to more of that later on in a more dramatic way in the future, or just a shriveling of who you are.
It does. I mean, my husband always says to me, "But Leah, I mean, and because I've been around with him for 25 years, I can lie with impunity while he's there." And why would you lie? It's such a small thing, right? But it's a fear of conflict. And I think that it's those things that we're all. I didn't write this book from a point of total victory. I'm also on a journey, but I think maybe what I'm trying to help people is just trying to break down those different areas where you find the lids in your life, and hopefully share some kind of wisdom on how you could overcome.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's really like an expression of your heart, and I think you see that through the book. Like, there's power, but there's also a huge vulnerability in it as well.
Absolutely.
Did that come up in that process as you're writing it? You're thinking, I'm being vulnerable, but for me to empower others, I have to go through that.
I think I have to be honest to say, when I started writing it, I'm a journaler, so I journal. So I think that I write a lot of my things down. I've been known to wake up at night and just text something because I don't want to forget what I've said. So I journal a lot. And I think in writing it initially, I was journaling to try and make sense what just happened there. You know, you just you don't know what's just gone on, and you just want to journal it. So when I look back at the first draft of the book, I think I was kind of bleeding. Because you're journaling, and when you're journaling, you're bleeding, you're crying out, and then I think it became very clear that it could help other people. So then I think for me, the focus was more. It's very difficult to tell the story of pain without actually recounting some of the stories. So you have to allude to somebody somewhere who feel like you're talking about them. But I think that the most focus for me was for people. Like, come on, you might find yourself in this position. You don't have to stay there. You know?
Exactly. And I think it's that thing is that this book is not necessarily for leaders. It's for everybody.
It's for everybody.
It captures you, because we're all leaders in
We're all
some way.
leaders.
So it captures you at whatever stage of the journey you're on. Some people are further ahead, some people are further behind. But it captures everybody in the right moment. Everyone's got a lid to break. Everyone's got a glass ceiling to break through. My question would be is, if you smash that glass ceiling, what happens if that next one's not a glass ceiling? What happens if there's a protective layer before that glass ceiling? Which way do you look? Do you look back into yourself?
And I think for me, that's where the faith comes in. Because I think for me, that's the true north. It's almost like somebody once asked me, says, well, Leah, how do I know I have a lid? I said, well, because if you are here, and if you are, the gap between where you are and where God said you should be is not decreasing. Somewhere, somehow, there's a lid. You know, somewhere, somehow, there's a lid. Because for me, if I'm going to encounter something that stops me, it could be God protecting me, it could be not now, it could be never, but I have to be able to go back and say, what did he say about this? But how many of us have been in situations where God said something, but the environment is saying something else? You know? And it's testing that. I'm not advocating for saying that never ever have people who speak into your life, but you should always test your leaders. I'm a mentor myself. Test me. Like what I've spoken into your life. You know, is it aligning? Is every time I speak to you, you're like uncomfortable? Every time I'm saying you, and are you in the same spot you were 10 years ago when I was speaking to you? And I think that's the test.
And I think that's the, like you say, that there's 10 years. There's often a time gap. There's often a gap. Now you can sit and look back and think, oh, that was off, that was strange, I should have done this, I should have done that. How could you, like, to people that are in the moment, but people could be struggling with stuff now, they don't know who to turn to. You said you've got that faith element, but what strength could you give them? And what's part of this book is that strength that you put into them, that people can just empower their step. Rather than their leap forward, it's every step that they take.
Yeah, I think we've got therapists for a reason. You know, I think these are people who are trained and my white sons, you guys are quite good at that. But whereas for black people, I think there's almost like a stigma attached to the fact that you're going to go and ask for help. But if you're stuck in something and you just can't make way of it, and you just get somebody who can talk to you, you know, who's professional, or get some people around you who you trust, you know, who have proven the test of time, that when they speak into your life, they're not afraid for you to grow to a point where you become bigger than them. I always speak to I always speak to people in my life that I mentor, and they'll be like, I am now the floor to where you're going to go. You know, my ceiling should be the floor where you're going to go. So have people around you who are not intimidated for you to be so successful that you even surpass where they're going. You know, because for me, your success is my success, because I'll be like, look, she's flying. You know, so and I think it's having the right people around you, making sure that you get the therapy that you need, and if you're a Christian, make sure that you tap into that faith. That's what sustains me.
Absolutely.
And I think that's it. I think like there's so much self-development that I think you've worked your way through. That's actually, in some sense, for you personally, would have promoted you in your ability to look at yourself. I think that's a big, I think just to tap into, again, our society now, we spoke about fear, but I think identity, and I think self-worth is a huge,
Absolutely.
I think it's probably the biggest glass, it's probably the thickest glass we can get through. Is there anything that you can really speak into that?
I think that's the identity thing was the bit that I wrote in my first book, isn't it? Just talking about the things that I'd gone through and the voices that had spoken over my life. And for me, I think that I say it a lot in the book, where it's almost like a physical voice. I have to voice it out to say, no, I'm not who you say I am. I'm not who you say I am. What you're saying does not align with who I think I am. We all at some level know what we're like. If I was like to say, Andy, who are you? Like, I'm kind, I'm a husband, and this. You kind of know, you might not know everything about you, but the essence of who you are, Peter, you kind of know. So when I'm coming to you and I'm trying to describe you that you don't understand, then I think I'm like, let's kind of look at this. Do you know what I mean? Like we all at some level, it's like you coming to tell me I'm a man. I'm not a man, I'm a woman. So there's just basic stuff that we know about ourselves, and I think it's really important in the culture that we're in the season that we find ourselves in, whether we're looking towards celebrities or whether we're looking towards our leaders in the church, whether we're looking towards our bosses. We have the danger of absorbing our own responsibility to direct where we need to be, and I think that's what my book is about. It's not about them, you know. It's about you. What are you doing to try and identify whether where they're saying you should be going is where you're going, is where you need to be going.
I absolutely resonated with that. Like just that saying of, you know, I'm not who you say I am. Because I think we do definitely hold on to what people say about us or how they define us, rather than actually holding on to what God says about us. And I think that's what, you know, we're lacking a little bit in regards to actually, do we know who we are? You know, just exactly. Are we actually spending time trying to discover who we actually are? Without allowing people to define us.
And it's not just the people who are necessarily officially in authority over you. It's your family, it's your friends, it's people from your past who you've not seen for a while, and they know the old you, and they know the history.
Listen, there are people watching this. Right? I was at uni with them 20 years ago. They will define me from the girl they knew 20 years ago. You know? And I'm definitely not that woman now. But that's the nature of life, isn't it?
But do you think people just fail to like they really struggle to just see past who you've become now? Because you do talk a lot about becoming and us becoming more. Do you think people struggle to see past, you know, your past and seeing who you can be?
I think there's two things there, Ronia. I think there's those who've never had a chance to be around you to see your evolution, so they probably don't know what you're like now. And there are those who see you now and just don't want to see. There's those who are in your life who know what you could be but don't want you to be that person.
It's the same way as like you would have seen it as a midwife. You see a baby small, you might see them a few years later. Like, oh, you've grown so much. But you've not seen the steps and the journey they've taken through. Like, you just see the end product.
And then we look at that person as the baby.
Yeah, but also when you talk about identity, when you talked about the friends that you knew, my mom always used to say, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. You know, the same way we look at them and think, oh my gosh, if those are the people you're hanging around with, that's who you are. To some level.
Hey, my name is Jareb, and I'm going to sing my song, That Place, for you, Auntie Leah, on your book launch. Congratulations. The older I get, the more numb that I feel. It's like I'm stuck in a cycle, or I'm chasing a thrill. Nobody knows, but everyone sees. Working 7 to 6, just to stay on your feet. We're all trying to get to that place where we can finally be who we're meant to be. So help me get there. Ooh, 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 ooh. I just wanna be there, that place. Ooh, 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 ooh. So take off the chains, I just wanna be free. Oh, I'm so tired of faking, I just wanna be me. We're all trying to get to that place where we can finally be who we're meant to be. So help me get there. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh, I just wanna be there, that place. Ooh, 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 ooh. I just wanna be, let me be. Set me free, oh set me free. I just wanna be, let me be. Set me free, oh would you set me free? I just wanna be, let me be. Set me free, would you set me free? Help me get there. Oh, 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 oh. I just wanna be there, that place. Oh, that place. Yeah, that place. Yeah. We're all trying to get to that place where we can finally be who we're meant to be.
So I want to go into what lids you talk about in the book. There's quite a few and they're really good. But before that, I just wanted to ask one more question on kind of the context of the book. When did you start writing it? Because it is so timely for what's going on in the world right now. There are so many people who, through lockdown, through having space to think, they're suddenly seeing the glass ceiling that's above their heads.
Yes.
When did you start? How has it ended up coming out at the perfect moment?
Honestly, I'd like to think that I planned it, but it was truly the providence of God. I started writing this book 20 months ago.
Wow.
Right.
So 20 months ago, I think in the first year, I had pretty much finished it. So no idea that 2020 is going to come and there'll be a madness of what we've been.
Yeah.
But it was almost like it was a horn that God was blowing into the future, you know, is the way that I see it. So I wrote it 20 months ago and I'd finished it, but I kept picking it up, you know, making sure that I was testing the temperature of what was in the book, you know. And then I think 7 months ago it was done.
Yeah.
To be honest, and I think that I never really released it because I was thinking, let me just wait for lockdown to finish because I want the proper launch and you know. And
Hey, YouTube.
But you know, it just happened when everything started going crazy in the world. I was like, this book is perfect for today, but I just didn't know. I just didn't know. I'll be a very quick writer if I wrote it in a short time, but no, it's been around quite a long time. Lockdown diaries. I'd like to say, but no. So it's been around for a long time, but I think that it almost reflects what a lot of people are going through. It does reflect what a lot of people are going through.
Absolutely. So, I mean, in the book you go through a series of different chapters explaining the lids that we face. Kind of one of the early ones is talking about the lids, and we've already mentioned it, of what we put on ourselves, the narratives we have of ourselves, how we talk of ourselves to other people, in our own mind, what's the story there. Can you mention a bit in the book about how you begin to change that and how you identify that, but can you speak a bit more into kind of just practical strategies of, okay, I've identified this narrative that I'm saying to myself I'm not good enough and that's a lid to me. How do I go about breaking that belief in that untruth?
I think the biggest thing, especially for people in your generation, is social media.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just believe that all of us, I think we all struggle with it. And I think that we can never achieve for as long as we're comparing ourselves to other people. And me saying stop comparing yourself to other people is not going to help you. So what tool can I tell you? Maybe stop scrolling as much, you know? Because I always say this, that, you know, people on social media will always put our best foot forward.
Yeah.
So, you know, and yet we take their best foot forward or their best image of themselves and we compare it to the lowest image that we see about ourselves, which is not the truth, you know. And I think that even that lid, which tells me I'm not good enough, is because it's born from something of comparison. Comparing is natural. But if you're feeding yourself, you're constantly in a place where you're constantly you know, comparing yourself. Then cut that thing off. Even the Bible says, you know, if your left arm causes you up, for a while, just kind of say to myself, I'm not going to scroll anymore. I'm going to try and remove myself from that. I'm going to stop watching the Kardashians. Don't kill me. Kardashians. I'm just giving examples where you're watching people where you know you can never really achieve or attain, and then you wonder why you're feeling.
Yeah. Have you ever had to come off social media or ever had to do anything like that?
Yeah. I think I came off social media years ago for maybe 3 years, and it was, for me, it was the best time, but I wasn't doing life with Leah then, so I think it was easier for me as a person to just say I'm going to switch off. But when you start building something like what I'm building, it is on that kind of platform, and I think it's trying to teach people how do you tell yourself. It's almost like giving yourself strategy time. I'm not going to switch off my phone or look at Life with Leah before 6 o'clock. I'm not going to, I'm going to read the words first before I do this. I'm going to make sure. So it's making sure that you structure yourself and giving yourself enough time. The same way you do at work, Why don't you do that in our personal life? So it's almost like minimizing the voices that are coming externally so you can check who you are internally.
There's an element of self-control to it as well. Like for me, I think if my relationships and my friendships are strained, I know there's another area, like in my relationship with God is strained. So it's just centralizing yourself and just having that self-discipline, I think.
And by no means am I bashing social media, by the way. I'm an avid user myself. But I just think that there's stuff that's in our world that makes us... Even the friends that we keep, I had a friendship for many years that I look back now and thinking, I was in kindergarten! I didn't know. I was a grown woman in kindergarten friendship. And I think that it's those things that if you're constantly around somebody who's a friend who's always making you feeling like you're less than, you haven't achieved, what are you doing with that friend?
But I guess it's like in your book you talk about like one of my favorite stories is the story of the frog. So there's obviously the frog. For those of you who are unaware, there's the frog that is put in hot water, boiling water. That frog will jump out of that boiling water straight away. But if you've got the frog that's in cold water and you turn the temperature up slightly, that frog will stay in that water to the point of boiling itself, really. But I guess what you're talking about really is us being aware of, are we in situations where the temperature's being turned up, but we're unaware, so we're putting lids on ourselves, but we're not aware because we're just in that environment. So is social media, is the temperature being turned up in that environment? What people are saying to us, is the temperature being turned up where we're not realizing that we're actually in a situation where actually it's impacting and killing who we really are meant to be.
And that's true, but also I think if I also want to flip it, I think being a parent myself, I remember I hold a responsible job, I'm very busy, I've got stuff, and I remember people in my generation would be like, why do you find the time to be on social media? So let me tell you something, because it helps me parent. Because my kids are on social media. Like, how can I not know what's going on if I don't know? I draw the line on Snapchat, but and the fact that my kids are grown now, I don't need to be on social media. But I think that as much as we say that, you could also use it as a tool that can help you. But yes, indeed, a lot of us are in dysfunctional places, and then we just don't even know that it's changing who we are very, very slowly.
You become comfortable.
It's
like that thing, if you eat, you wrap yourself in a blanket, you're comfortable. That temperature increases, you just, you're comfortable there. But like,
you adapt to the heat, isn't it? So you adapt to the heat.
Exactly, it's like you fit to your environment. So it's that thing, it's coming back to, am I in the right environment? What can I change about me that can step out of it?
And so we've talked about taking yourself out, so you've got a different perspective. Where does your faith come into that process of taking yourself out and getting a broader perspective of it?
So taking yourself out doesn't take yourself out to nothing, because I always believe that when there's nothing, then the enemy comes in and stops. So you have to be able to start feeding yourself with something. And I think at this point in time, even with the smartphone, whatever much we say about it, like the word is on our fingertips. The choice is between which app press. Do you know what I mean? Your version has got all sorts of plans for anything. Like all you're saying is like, I want to look at identity. Identity is there. I want to look. Do you know what I mean? So you take yourself out, but don't leave yourself so open. You need to be able to fill yourself with something, whether it's your therapist, whether it's your counselor, whoever it is that's in your world. But for my faith, for me, I think I had to really dig into my idea. Who am I? Everything that's happened to me that's brought me to this point. Who am I? And you'd think that a woman at my age who's done so much would actually know. Actually, when you go through something so traumatic, and words have been spoken over you and spoken about you, you begin to question whether you're really the person that they define you to be. But then when you read the word of God says something contrary.
Yeah.
You know? He says, I'm made in the likeness of God.
Yeah.
You know, I'm beautiful in His sight.
Yeah.
He loves me. That I'm,
Yeah.
you know, the apple of His eye.
Yeah.
And that He sings over me.
Yeah.
And then you suddenly begin to think,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no,
And
you lie.
in the book, you talk a lot about David and
Yes.
his battle with Goliath and
Yeah.
the things that he faced and how he completely took God's perspective
Yeah.
and took the story of the things God had done in his life, defeating the lion and the bear, to enable him to speak from a place of faith.
He defeated the lion and the bear, and his brother goes, where have you left those few sheep? You're like, did you ever kill a bear before? Do you know what I mean? Like the very people who are speaking over your life, actually, you need to start checking and saying, what have you achieved? Before you come and tell me what you're telling me now, and we don't check that.
Yeah.
You know, we don't check that. I'm not talking about achievement in terms of the physical. I'm just talking about achievement spiritually, achievement in relations, and sometimes we talk about achievement in terms of material things. What cars do they drive? How much money do they make? But for me, I think all those are temporary. You know, COVID has showed us that. It levels the field. You know what I mean? Like, are you a man of integrity? Are you a man who tells the truth? Do you lie with impunity? Those are the things that you want to be checking.
I think that's what people are checking now, because I think we've been so easy to give power away, but I think with COVID and the situation that we are in now, we are actually looking for authenticity in people. That's what we're looking for now. Because all of those things don't matter now. Like what you're saying, COVID has shown that it doesn't matter anymore. So authenticity, it really, really is very key, and not giving our power away to people all the time, which is what we tend to do.
I think it's that thing. I think we're almost consumed by evidence.
Yes.
Like we said, like we look on things and we compare our social media to somebody else's. We're consumed by what people have.
Yeah.
Whereas that thing it is that spiritual growth, it's that internal growth that actually makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
That if we flip our perspective to look at the spiritual growth and our personal growth, it moves away from they have everything, but they don't have everything inside. So that's the key.
And also while you're chasing what they are achieving, you're not living your best self. And you're robbing us from experiencing the real Peter that God actually designed, you know? So the best compliment you can give yourself is live an authentic life. I've always known that I was born to do this.
Yes.
And I was in an environment that told me no.
Yes.
So you have to think, and then you start thinking, maybe these people are right. But then I always tested it with God, like, God, if this is not you, then take it away. And it never went away. So then I began to realize, actually, the problem is not the thing that I think I was called to do. The problem is the environment that I'm finding myself in. You know, I've never. I mean, the places would be like, oh, she wanted to do this, and you know, we wanted her to wait. But for me, I just feel like I was in a place where I knew I was born to do what I'm doing now, writing books, speaking to people. But when you're in a place for 18 years and that's not happening, I did check myself. Like maybe this desire just comes from myself. And you have to check God and say, God, take it away. Take it away. Because 18 years telling you it's not going away. It's telling you that the problem is not you. The problem is the environment.
Exactly. And you were saying how you have to be careful as well to ensure that you're not afraid of people who you think have got
power.
Power. So who can take you to like the next level? Because then that's what that's the whole.
But we rely, and I think it's a very sorry to cut you, but we rely on man to take us where God told us we should go.
Exactly.
And so when we see what we see as power and platform, we think that's the person that's going to take me where God is going to take me. But sometimes God is saying, I'm going to close that door to show you. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with me. So I think that's the key that I'm trying to tell people. Like you said, let's not give our power away because that power is deposited in us by God.
Absolutely.
You know?
And that's what this book is allowing people to do, is to realize that actually you have the power within to take those lids off, you know.
The entire God of the universe exists inside of you. You can do all things.
And he's got the imagination to take you on a different route to success than the people above you. And I think one of the things, so like the way that other people could be lids to you, one of them is expecting you to follow the same route they follow. And to go at the same pace that they went at. And that's never going to happen because we're living in a different time. You're a unique person. God has a unique call, and direction for your life.
And as leaders, we need to allow people to have a divergent journey to get to where they're going. Otherwise, we're all robots and copycats, you know? Like, I need to be able, as if I'm leading you and I'm mentoring you, I need to allow you to take a journey the way God's taking you. It doesn't have to look like mine. My job is just to make sure that we're looking at where you need to be. How you get there is going to be unique to you. And I think we've lost that sometimes.
Definitely.
It's exactly the same in the workplace because we're talking also from a church context, but in the workplace you will have people above you who they've had their journey, their career, but their context of their career is completely different.
Absolutely.
And so what you want to do, we're living in a really entrepreneurial time, that's going to be different. And you need to find the leaders who will see that and feed that and champion that in you to enable you to go forwards and to encourage you to do things differently and to explore different ways of doing things. I think that's one of the really big things I've taken from this book is find the people who are going to champion you.
And I think I like what you say, that it's in every context. We're talking about lids in every context, but we will look at the context within the filter of what is so dear to us as individuals, isn't it? But it's in every context, like even in friendships, like find people who are doing friendships well. Marriages, you know, a lot of people, I always say to people, like, you will take yourselves to counselling when you're crippled, but you never take yourself to counselling when you're doing well. And I think, but you take your car for MOT. Because what you're trying to say to the garage is, tell me if this is working, isn't it? But why don't you take your marriages? Like, take your marriages when you're happy, because you don't want to get to a point where you're in crisis. You want to make sure that you avoid those pitfalls, isn't it? And I think that what we are saying here is just check your lids.
Absolutely.
Check your lids. If you're not progressing forward, God is a God of progression. He wants us to be moving forward. Definitely. And what He wants for everybody is to be progressing upwards. The Bible says, the path of the righteous spirals where? Upwards. If you're not going upwards, you're going where? Downwards. So you have to just check the context of where you are.
You have to see why you're going downwards and staying the same.
I think it's like you said, like there's one mention to David in this. David was written off by everybody. His own family, except God. And that was the one thing that pulled him out, because once he knew his identity was called and purposed in him, he knew he could live for only for that, which is what you mentioned too. Is there's always people that will try and pull you back or try and shop on one side or refine you, but it's what's inside you will come out. You just got to let it.
You got to let it.
You've got to allow yourself.
And if you talk about David, like his major lids were in his family, you know. Like how hard would that be?
People who love him the most.
Who should love him?
Yes.
Who should love him?
Well, the ultimate lids over his life. But whereas you wouldn't expect the people who love you the most to be the lids.
But it's that thing, were they people that loved him the most? Or was that the expectation that we put on those people?
So you put expectation.
So we expect those people to be in that position.
I think we're going to come on a bit more to this in the next session of how to deal with the people who love you and how to respond when they are becoming the lids. So
Here I stand. Pour into me the brightness of your daybreak. The sound of your voice is my soul's alarm awake. Back then, if I knew what I know now, I would not have mourned my destiny, because I left it in the hands of man. However, wondering where I would step and who I would be led me face to face with you. And yet I pushed you away, trying to collect myself piece by piece, but peace I could not find. Days grew long since we last spoke. Voices grew feet and ran my mind. Yet from you I cannot hide. You feel as I, you break lies over my life, and the sunlight of your love ends the darkness of my night. And now my heavy heart is light. Feet on most green pastures, I don't gaze the other side. You take my breath away and then breathe in me new life. You're my reason why I break all rules and regulations that with your heart don't align. Today that I decide, I dance in this new freedom, uncontained in open skies. Would you reign in me, use these hands and move my feet? All of you is all of me, until the day I cannot breathe. There are times I'm at my end, you have more for me to be. Please start to finish every good work you've begun in me.
Wow, so what a way to finish the previous session about David, and just the fact that actually it was the people who, quote unquote, loved him the most who obviously ended up being his lid. So I think a question for you is, can a leader or someone who we see in authority be a lid and a covering at the same time?
I think that, we were talking about this with Peter in the break, and I think the answer would be yes. I think I'll answer it in twofold. I think that there can be a covering to somebody else, and there can be a lid to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That means it's a determinant of what they feel, where they put their priority. But also I think that one leader can see something in you that probably intimidates them,
Yes.
that they don't want you to surpass that.
Yes,
So
yeah.
they can be a lid to you in that sense,
Yeah.
but champion you in other things that they think
Yes.
is not really important. So I think in a quick answer, I think yes, I think I have come across that,
Yeah.
where people will lead me towards a certain strength,
Yes.
but cover the bit that I know I'm also called to do.
Yes.
So kind of lid me on that one, but
Yes.
champion me on another.
Yes, yeah. And I think one of the things that I really loved about your book was just how honest you were in terms of just how open you were. And one of the things that stood out was the issues of the people who you really thought were going to be there for you. And in our generation, or maybe the word that we kind of use is the word ambivalence. And ambivalence is known as the state of having mixed feelings or contradictory ideas about something or someone. And in your book, you had quite a lot of ambivalent friends. So, as adults, we've got three groups of friendships. We've got obviously those who will be there for you. Then you've got those who you think will be there for you. But obviously in the difficult situations, you were surprised that a lot of people ended up not being there for you. And then you've got those who are toxic, so we know straight away that we're going to stay away from this group of people.
Keep them away.
Yes,
Yeah, arm's length.
arm's length for sure.
YouTube, don't be toxic people. Don't be toxic friends.
So, I mean, in the context of obviously Liz, the question I have for you today is, what has this experience really taught you about friendship? And how would you really advise those who are watching, or anyone watching, in regards to how to make great friendships that will propel you into your destiny, as well as what should people look out for signs of actually good friends and the toxic or kind of ambivalent friendships? Because you definitely had people who you thought would be there for you and then ended up not being there for you. So you definitely have a lot of lessons from just that experience.
So for me, I think in the 20 months when the people that I thought would be there for me wouldn't be there for me, you start off through the 5 stages of grief, isn't
Yes,
it?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you come back and then you begin to ask, was I expecting from them what they couldn't give me? So it wasn't me that defined that friendship as being close. Or were we on the same page? Because I think somebody tells a story of when I say to you, bring a blue chair, your idea of what blue is going to be is different from your idea. I'm looking at aqua blue, you're looking at sky blue, you're looking at deep blue, you're looking at dark blue.
Turquoise.
But it's a blue chair, turquoise, it's a turquoise. But you're looking at blue. So I think that for me, I went through the journey of saying, first I was angry. I was like, you said you were my friend, and then you went there, and then you knew.
Yes.
And I turned around and I thought, well, did I put them where I shouldn't have taken them? Because there's 3 layers, isn't there? It's the inner circle, the outer circle, and the very outer circle.
Yes.
Did I put people in the right stages of my life? And therefore, when I was let down, I was let down on a level that they weren't supposed to be operating.
Yes.
So I think the first thing you need to be able to do is you need to place people on the right level
Yes.
in your life and relationships.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
You can test.
Yeah.
You know, there's some friends that we have or relationships that we have that we are constantly explaining away bad behavior.
Yeah.
And therefore you explain bad behavior and put them on the inner core.
But what would you say is bad behaviours when you're saying explain?
So for me, I think that you can test somebody's loyalty towards you.
Okay.
When something hits the fan, are they standing with you or against you? Are they saying what they said they would say? If they're saying that to your face, are they saying the same thing about you behind your back? You know, walls have the ears. You always end up hearing what people are saying. There was stuff that was said about me from grown women who I would have thought professional grown.
Yes.
You should know better. Why are you saying this?
Yes.
And you know, things never stay.
Yeah.
So it's those things where I think I began to ask myself, did I place them on a position where I shouldn't have placed them? That's not their fault.
Yeah.
That's mine.
Okay.
Because I'm the one that's got the power to place people in the right places in my life in terms of friendships.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So then you move away from being angry at people who are not being loyal friends to a position where you ask yourself, well, I have the responsibility to vet you.
Yes.
Because only I can give you the permission to hurt me.
Yes.
And then God came and gave me a word. You know, it's like friendships or people in your lives are like, if I'm flying to Zambia, for example, one route would be I get on at Manchester, go through Dubai, find myself in Lusaka.
Yeah.
The people I will travel with from Manchester to Dubai, not everybody's going to go with me to Zambia. Some of them will have to get off in Dubai, right?
Yeah.
And then when they get off in Dubai, I'm carrying on to Lusaka with a different set of people.
Yes.
Sometimes we change.
Yeah.
Sometimes the whole plane changes
Yes.
and it's completely different people.
Yes.
So you have to accept that maybe certain people were there in your life up to a certain season. It doesn't make them bad people. They may have made bad choices that may have hurt you, but maybe their season in your life is over, you know?
Yeah.
So
how would we identify the ones that will help us propel us into our destiny rather than those friendships that are actually going to be lids in our lives? I think it's quite a big thing because we want to be around people who are going to propel us rather than people who are going to hinder us.
yeah, but the danger we can't do is always look at people as in lids covering. Do you know what I mean? We have to be approaching people in terms of relationships.
Yes.
And I think that I have the benefits of time because I'm only 20 years old. And I think I've got friends that I knew since I was 4.
Okay.
You know? And I know that if I pick up the phone now and I was crying, she was supporting me through a dark season of my life. She didn't even know these people. She's like, who are we going to poison? Tell me what's their address, let's go bomb them. She don't even know who these people are.
Yeah.
I don't even need to ask whether she's a lid or a couple. Like I know that she's my ride or die. You see what I mean? And I think you can know. You know, we have been given that kind of temperature within ourselves. That you can hang around people knowing very well they're not good for you, but we stay. What do we stay? Why do we stay? That's the lid we need to look at. Because then the problem is not about the people who are stopping you, it's about you who's allowing them.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually very true. And I like what you say because, I think maybe in life we are kind of taught to look at people in regards to lid covering, but real friendship is not something that actually really like, people are not good at having real friends. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, we kind of look at people like, oh, what can we get from that person, or or how can that? Do you know what I mean? So we kind of assess friendships, but I like the fact that you actually just be someone's friend.
Just be someone's friend. And you know,
just be someone's friend.
If you're around somebody and you ask yourself, am I feeling drained when I come from you? And you're asking yourself, why am I drained? But then you still go back for more, right? And then you come back and you're still drained. And then your wife is like, oh, baby, she's dinner. And then she goes back for more. It's not the person's fault. It's you, because you have the power. And I think that's what my book is trying to do, is to empower you. We said this before. You have the power to determine who comes into your inner circle or who you go out. But the problem is sometimes we keep people around who are dysfunctional for so long that when we begin to put our boundaries up, that's when you hear, oh, Ronia's changed.
Yes.
Oh, Ronia's difficult.
Yes.
Well, because now you have decided, I want my boundaries up. But then the question for us as well is, are your boundaries up, down, up, down, up? Because then you're a lid yourself. If your boundaries are up, let your boundaries be up. Let us know what is acceptable to you. Let us know what's not acceptable to you. You know, and that's a process. But the longer you keep a lid relationship going, the harder it is to separate. Harder to separate.
I just think it's that thing, like you said, explaining, like when you explain bad behaviour to yourself. I don't always necessarily think it's bad behaviours. I think it's just simply explaining yourself.
Yeah.
If you've got people that are close and they know the real you, you shouldn't have to explain your position because they know your heart. There's no question of it. They can call you out on it and challenge you on it because that's what friendship should do with that. But it's not necessarily, you shouldn't have to be in a position where you explain. It comes back to that thing before you said when some people call you, the heart goes, you're like, oh, what do I do? What do I do?
You called me 4 times before and I didn't answer.
Because there's some people that you'll never answer the phone to. There's some people you'll always pick up the phone to.
And then what happens though is when you're so tired, because that's the reason why we sometimes don't pick up our phones, is we know that the most understanding are the ones we treat badly. And then we give our time to the ones that we know are needy.
That's true.
So who's perpetuating the lid there? It's not the lid, it's you, because now you've turned into that lid yourself.
Yes.
So I think that the whole book for me, like I said, it's very difficult to go away from some of the examples that might be very difficult to read for people that some people still are loyal to. But for me, it's more to empower us to be able to look at the areas in our lives where we are allowing these things to perpetuate.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite lines in the book is when you say, you have to be able to see yourself in the future. You literally wrote that. You have to be able to see yourself. I have to be able to see myself in the future. And at times, in our mind, the way we view ourselves, we kind of stay in a prison where actually things are wide open for us. So the question I have for you is, what would you say to someone today, especially in the current climate, who may be struggling to see themselves in the future? Because one thing that I really love about your book, which I've written down, is that it's actually allowed for me to start dream again about my future, dream again beyond the lid, you know. But I know, like speaking to people, that they are failing to see themselves beyond the lid. Like all they see is the lid, but they can't see themselves in the future. So what would you say to someone who's really struggling to see themselves?
Rome wasn't built in a day. Cut yourself some slack. I think that for me, it was so easy to look and say, I've lost 18 years, I want to catch up. I can't build what I lost in 18 years. But did I even lose it? Or did I become stronger for it? You know, did I draw wisdom from it? Got a book out of it.
Yes,
But, I mean, I say that in jest, but I just think that sometimes you haven't, if you've never been able or never been taught to dream, or you've been in an environment that stifled yourself, your spiritual eyes, your physical eyes cannot dream. You have to just ask yourself, what am I going to do this afternoon that I like? You start from there. You know, what am I going to do this afternoon that I like? You know, and then what am I going to do tomorrow that I like? What am I going to do the next day? So Rome wasn't built in a day, and I think that if it's people who are struggling because of the situations they found themselves in, then when you start forcing yourself, then that's when you start making decisions that are coming from your head. They're not really, is that the dream that you have for your future? Your dream for your future comes from your passion that you have, that you've sat in for so long, that you cannot keep quiet but to speak out, you know, but that will come with time, with getting in touch with yourself. I went to, the girls bought me a floating experience. It was the craziest thing I've ever done. Like, I just, for the first 5 minutes, I thought, okay, so I'm in this tomb of water, floating on salty water. The lights are off. I can't have music. I don't have my phone. What am I doing? It was the best hour I actually spent, you know? Because I thought then you start thinking, first of all, your mind wanders, and then you start asking, I started asking myself, hey, what do you want?
Absolutely.
The answer didn't come until you really buzzed me to say it was 1 hour. But I would go back again, isn't it? So it's about taking
But you
the
gave
time.
yourself that time to
Carve yourself some time for you. But sometimes you're in environments where there's not enough time to carve yourself time for you because a lot is piled up in the function of a family.
Absolutely. And sometimes they just dream. There are people who are just aborting your dreams or dream killers who you're surrounding yourself with. So you actually just, you know, need to come out of that to be able to then, you know, just, dream again.
It's also sometimes, like we said, like Rome was built in a day, but sometimes it's not necessarily about building things, it's about stripping back. It's about stripping things back. And I just think, like, you look in the Bible, you think like walls of Jericho, they circled that thing 4, 5, 6. It was the 7th time it fell. Do you know what I mean? So it's keep doing the consistent thing, keep turning up, keep doing it, keep being in that role, keep pushing against it, and one day it'll come down. Because one day the cry of your heart will be louder than the voices anyway.
And you have to be very careful that there's very lids that we criticize, that we don't become the very thing that we don't really see. So it's very easy to say the lid. And while you're doing that, you're becoming the very lid that you're criticizing. So I think it's evolution on both fronts. It's identifying who the lids are, but also making sure that we are all leaders in our lives as individuals. And are we, as we identify those lids, are we those same lids we see to other people?
Yeah. So how can we stop? How can we not be lids to other people? Then is the next thing, isn't it?
But you see, I think I talk about your blind spot.
Yes. Oh, do you know what? That's my favourite chapter. I never with no clothes.
But
that is so true.
It's the blind spot, isn't it? It's about surrounding yourself with people who are not afraid to tell you truth. I have this friend of mine who I was telling you will be like, Leah, who are we bombing today? She don't even know them. She's like, they've hurt you. Let's go. You know, give me the address. I'll do it. Or let's go. I'll drive the getaway car. She's that kind of, you know what I mean? She's that kind of friend, and I think that you have to surround yourself with people who tell you. And she said to me when I had Zoe, and I in my mind, because I was so tiny before I had the children, she said I thought I was a size 10. I was going into shops buying size 10 clothes, tight, I'm still wearing them. And she said to me, Leah, you've gained weight. I just want. That was an uncomfortable decision. Like I'm thinking, everybody around me could see I had gained weight uncomfortably for the frame that I was in. And nobody was telling me, but she sat me down and says, look, I want to love you. And it was only through her saying that I've got size 10 clothes in my wardrobe I'm not wearing, and I keep buying them. Because it's a blind spot. So how do we become a lead? Is making sure that we value feedback from people and not always take what somebody says which is negative and perceive it as an attack. You know? And I think that iron sharpens iron. Absolutely. The only way you can actually grow is through friction. A pearl is born out of friction. And I think that if we always take what's coming and we're prickly, we will become lids. We'll become the very lids we're criticizing.
So how do you learn to bring that criticism to people in a way that they will receive it? I mean, there is a limit. Like people will receive it how they receive it. But as you are bringing that challenge up, as you are trying to break that ceiling, how do you do it in a way that makes it most likely that people will come with you and the people you're challenging will accept the feedback?
I think what I've learned from my experience now is that I've never challenged a lid that's never very close to me. I think it depends on how powerful and how big the platform is, then I can speak into it. I don't necessarily have to speak to the lid itself. But I think that on a personal level, you can only challenge somebody from stopping to be a lid by permission. So people will only give you permission. If you give me that permission to speak into your life, I'll be like, I didn't like what you said there. But actually, sometimes I can see, I'll be like, Lynn, keep walking. Because you haven't given me that permission. And if you haven't given me that permission, it doesn't matter how much I speak, you won't take it. You know? So I think there's that element of how do people need to trust us enough to be able to tell the truth in their lives. And then the other flip side is that we need to be humble enough to take when people are telling us, because sometimes you can dish it out, but you can't take it. And then people are like, well, you should have said it nicely. Well, there's no other way of telling somebody that they're gaining weight. You know what I mean? How can you say it? You know, it's difficult. So I think that in the whole book talks about challenging others, but also challenging ourselves.
I just think, what about the friction between seeing something in somebody that you're like, that needs to switch? So in a church context, if you're a leader, if you see another leader doing something, we don't have that relationship. There's that friction of people I have a relationship with, I can happily go to a challenge. But who's that person that you see and you're like, somebody else will have to pick that up because I don't have that relationship with them? So it's that thing, but then even in the workplace as well. If it's like your colleague, you're like, you get yourself in trouble.
I find that the workplace for me is slightly easier to deal with lids because there's proper systems of accountability. There's behaviour set in place. There's a whole function called human resource, whether they're functional or not is another. But there is a system. Whereas when you talk about it in the context of church, and I think I mentioned it, we run and default to a higher power. You know, and therefore when somebody says God said, game over.
Absolutely.
Whether they're dysfunctional or not.
Who can argue with that?
Who can argue with that? Even if you know it's a little bit of blind spot. You know what I mean? But it is, yeah.
So one of my favorite songs from Lecrae is called Free From It All. And in that song he says that if you live for the approval of people, you will surely die from their rejection.
Give me the song!
Play it.
Lecrae, Free From It All.
Yeah.
And in the book you touch on the issue of approval and people pleasing. Could you just elaborate a little bit on what you meant by life is not a ladder to be climbed for people's approval, and how can this actually be a hindrance for us cracking our lids?
Because for as long as we are operating outside the strength of what God has given us, we're dumbing ourselves down. How can you grow when you're dumbing yourself down? But if you're in an environment that tells you the more you suck up, the more you climb, you then begin to lose a sense of who you are, because you need to be a certain kind of person in order to climb up this ladder. You can never climb up that ladder in your authentic self, you know. So for example, me, I knew that I was probably too black. Maybe I was too strong. Maybe I was, but I couldn't be molded into something that could be used, that could fit that ladder, because maybe I was too challenging. Maybe I was time out, you know. But you just have to be able to say to yourself, are you going to live your authentic self? But your authentic self doesn't have to be all the time challenging and fighting, and you know what I mean? But it's almost like if you see something that is not okay, I think the environment should be okay to let you voice it out, and then maybe you haven't seen it right. Maybe you're wrong. But let's have the conversation. I think it's quite damaging to stifle people's voices, because that's the only way we grow. You know? Because I'll be like, hey, you will look at me sideways while we're recording. And then if I don't ask it, I walk away. You see how people look at me? People look at me sideways. I'll be like, you know, I've got a little squint. Oh, now I see it.
And
And
then immediately with that, it's 1, 2, 3 a turn.
Yes.
So that then it's the majority of turn.
Yes, the
So
majority.
it's going back to just keep it there.
Yes.
Find the result there. Let that be your thing. Leave everyone else out of it.
And I guess the final question is, what would you like people to get from reading this book? If there's one thing, if there's one thing, what would you really like people to get from this book?
I would just say, grab your freedom. This freedom is priceless, you know, and that there's nothing that you can do for anybody that should ever substitute your freedom.
That's great. Love that.
And if you want to explore more about the themes we've discussed today, you can purchase Leah's new book, a coaching session, or even her debut book, All Grown Up, at www.lifewithleah.co.uk. All links are in the description box below. We have one final item before we wrap up today, but before that, we have a few words from Leah Chilingwe and the reveal of the prize giveaway, so stick around.
Wow, thank you. This has just been an amazing evening. What a wonderful time that we've had. And I just feel like we've just scratched the surface. If you want to get more, you need to get the book. And of course, one of you has won a book. We ran a competition this week. And at Blended Look, a book and a free mentoring session is coming to you. You need to remember that if you're tired of living a contained life, it's time to smash those ceilings. And the ceiling is never a problem if you recognize you're the hammer.
God of Abraham, you're the God of covenant and faithful promises. Time and time again, you have proven you do just what you said. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass.
Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great
fluctuate, though the earth may pass away, your word remains the same. Your history can prove there's nothing you can do. You're faithful and true. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. Oh, 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 oh,
my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. He'll never let me down. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down.
Great is your faithfulness to me.
Great is your faithfulness to me.
From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name.
Great is your faithfulness